So you also proposed a new and eye-opening history about Ezra. So would you like to elaborate about him a bit? I mean, you proposed that the history that Ezra was the one responsible for transportation of Mosaic laws from Babylon to Judea can't be justified.
Oh, yes. That was another biblical story that biblical critics relied upon. Um, in the book, in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, uh, Ezra was a scribe who was part of the exiles living in Babylon. You know, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judea and took everybody captive and to Babylon. He was a priest, uh, and you know he came back. He got permission to come back to Jerusalem, and when he got back, according to the book of Ezra, he read the law and the holidays and all sorts of things to all the people, and they were amazed and celebrated, and so uh, he kind of introduced biblical Mosaic laws that people hadn't heard of at that point, the other people who were living in the land. So Julius Wellhausen, around 1900, a little bit before, he said, Ezra, that's when you get the priestly code. You know, Deuteronomy was introduced in 621 BC, and some other sources in Genesis, the Yahwist, the Elohist, they were even earlier. But the priestly material came in around 425 BC by Ezra. Again, it's relying on biblical history to date when these parts of Genesis appeared. And that history is not, it's not reliable. And in fact, even though the older generation of scholars rely on Ezra quite a bit, according to all the research I've done, Ezra was not written until about 175 BC, which is about 300 years after these events supposedly happened, or 250 years. You never hear about Ezra from anyone, including a figure called Sirach, who knew about the whole Old Testament, basically, but he doesn't know Ezra. And he's writing in 180 BC, and he's never heard of Ezra the scribe. And Sirach, or Ben Sira, he was a scribe. He promoted the scribes. He loved the scribes. His book in 50 chapters was all about the scribes. But he didn't mention Ezra because Ezra hadn't been written when he was writing his book, you know. Ezra postdates his book from 180 BC. So Ezra is so late and invented. A lot of it echoes the Hellenistic crisis of around 175 BC. So you can't take it as history, and you can't use it to date parts of the books of Moses. That whole method, it's called historical criticism, where you use the biblical history to date other parts of the Bible. That's really discredited now because the histories in Kings and Ezra, they aren't history, they're myth and theology and historiography, writing about history, but you can't take it as factual. You have to read it critically. And it doesn't provide a basis for dating when the parts of, you know, the books of Moses were written. That view's I consider obsolete.